This is Philosophy 2, DE, Las Positas College, Lecture 1 on Kantian Ethics, taken from Kant's work, The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, Section 1. Introduction. As you know, three philosophers have shaped the landscape of ethical philosophy in the Western world more than any others since the time of the ancient Greeks. These philosophers are Aristotle, Jeremy Bentham, and Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant and Jeremy Bentham were alive and working at the same time. Kant's work is far more complex, nuanced, and difficult than the work of either Aristotle or the Utilitarians. So we are covering him lastly among these three central philosophers. Kant lived in Germany from 1722 to 1804. Kant did his early research in astrophysics and developed some theories of the motion of stars and planets that have had impact up to this day. After that early work, questions of philosophy dominated Kant's mind, especially questions of ethics and theory of knowledge. Kant's ethical works. Kant gives us several accounts of his ethical philosophy in his works such as The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, published in 1785, The Critique of Practical Reason, published in 1788, and The Metaphysics of Morals, published in 1797. Kant offered revisions and interpretations of his work during this time. Kant was also famous for using very few examples in his central texts on ethics. All of these facts can make it difficult to get clear on Kant's ethical views. The bulk of our discussion in this lecture will be taken from Kant's first major work that focuses on ethics, The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, often referred to by Kant scholars simply as The Groundwork. Only a good will is without qualification good. Kant starts section 1 of The Groundwork with a claim that should already be somewhat familiar to us. Nothing, he says, can possibly be conceived in the world, or even out of it, which can be called good without qualification except a good will. The Groundwork, section 1. This idea should sound familiar to us, because we already know that Kant sided against Jeremy Bentham and all the utilitarians and or consequentialists by saying that it is not the result of my action that makes an action good. It is the motivation for my action. A good will is simply the desire and attempt to do the right thing. Happiness and virtue are not the same. In fact, Kant claims that if someone does not have a good will, that is, a sincere attempt to follow moral goodness, then the mere fact that this person is happy does not even seem appropriate to us. He claims that people are not even worthy of happiness unless they are at least trying to be good. So happiness in itself cannot, against Aristotle and Bentham, be used to judge what is morally good. Instead, he thinks we already recognize that we must be good in order to be worthy of happiness. Even a good will that accomplishes nothing is still good. Kant further argues against the consequentialist and utilitarian perspective by saying that a good will, that is a desire and attempt to do what is right, would still be good even if a person with that good will was never able to accomplish real good in the world with their actions. Suppose someone was in bad circumstances or was otherwise incapable of bringing about positive effects. Kant claims that as long as I was sincerely trying to do the right thing, that is all there is to being a good person. It is not enough that I merely want to do good, but that I use my desire to actually attempt to do good in the world. After all, many of the consequences of my actions, my skills and abilities, and the circumstances under which I was born, are outside of my control. Kant believes that I cannot be held morally responsible for things that are outside of my control. Living a rational and moral life may even make us less happy. To emphasize the point that living for ethics is not the same as living for happiness, Kant even claims that living an ethical life oftentimes means being less happy than living a non-ethical life. Here it looks like Kant is especially attacking Aristotle and his claim that the rational and virtuous life is also the life where I pursue my own happiness. You remember that for Aristotle, I am virtuous when I am fulfilled. When I fulfill my human potential by living rationally and balancing my desires, then I also live the happiest life. So that, in the end, the happiest life is also the most ethical life. Kant disagrees strongly with this, and even goes so far as to claim that people who simply live by instinct, just doing whatever they feel like to try to be happy, are much more likely to be happy than those who use their rationality to try to be good people and to limit their selfishness and follow moral principles. In this selection from the Groundwork, Kant claims that people who live according to reason often resent people who just follow instinct, because people who do follow reason, quote, find that they have in fact only brought more trouble on their shoulders rather than gained in happiness. And they end by envying rather than despising the more common stamp of men, who keep closer to the guidance of mere instinct and do not allow their reason much influence on their conduct. From the Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, Section 1. The clearest case of duty is one where we do what is right, even though we don't want to. It is important to note here that Kant is not saying that we should live by instinct instead of reason. In fact, he does believe that the life of reason and living by the good will are one and the same. We saw that a good will is a desire and a sincere attempt to do the right thing because it is the right thing. So someone has a good will when they are committed to doing their duty because it is their duty. But how do I know if I am doing the right thing because I want to do what is good, or just because it is easy, convenient, or rewarding? Kant famously claims that the clearest example of a good will is found when someone does the right thing, even though they do not want to do the right thing. An example of doing the right thing and wanting to do it. Imagine, for example, that you are a volunteer at a hospital because helping people at the hospital is something that you really enjoy doing. Imagine that you sincerely enjoy doing it, that you find everyone who you work with pleasant, and that you get great satisfaction out of using your talents to help people at the hospital. From the point of view of Aristotle, this sounds like a very ethical life. I am doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. I am using my talents and finding happiness through helping others. This person is virtuous instead of merely continent because their true desires are in line with their actions. Why would Kant disagree with this as a perfect example of virtue and a good will? Why Kant thinks this is not a good example of a good will. As Kant would put it, this is an act that is done in conformity with the moral law, but it is not an act that is done for the sake of the moral law. This is just another way of saying that the act which I did is the same act that I would do if I was acting for the sake of being moral, but it is not a moral act because I did not do it simply because it was the right thing to do. The problem from the point of view of Kant comes from the fact that the goodwill is a desire to do the right thing simply because it is right. If I am helping others because I simply enjoy helping others and it makes me happy, then I am not doing it simply because it is right. In other places, Kant suggests that it is nice when my desires align with my duty. But in the Groundwork, Kant rarely even suggests this. He likes the example of the person who does the right thing even though they don't desire to do that thing, because this shows beyond a doubt that they are doing the thing simply because it is right and not just because they want to. If I don't like hospitals, and I don't like sick people, and I don't enjoy helping them, at least I can be sure that the only reason I am helping them is because I know it is the right thing to do. We also do not choose our desires, so they cannot be what makes us moral. We also saw that Kant doesn't think that we can be morally evaluated on things that are outside of our control. Kant believes that much of our likes and dislikes, such as hospitals, helping people, and even people in general, are out of our control. I might just be born someone who doesn't really enjoy other people, or someone who does not really find joy in doing things for others. But if that is just the character I was born with, then it is not my fault, and I cannot be morally responsible for it. On the other hand, my decisions and attempted actions are under my control, and so it is my decisions and attempted actions for which I can be held morally responsible and for which I can be morally evaluated. What do you think? We have not yet gotten to the specifics of how Kant thinks we should choose to act if we are acting from a good will, but we have already seen some important distinctions between Kant and both Aristotle and the Utilitarians that are worth considering. Do you think that having a good will still makes me morally good, even if I am unable to bring about positive effects in the world? Do you find the person who does the right act, but does not find joy in doing the right act, to still be a morally good person? Or do you agree with Aristotle that when the virtuous person acts, they act not just because it is their duty, but also because they find fulfillment, satisfaction, and joy through those acts? This ends Lecture 1 on Kantian Ethics and the Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals.